What's up, y'all? It's Carla, aka C-Lot the Poet. Happy Sunday. Today is the Sabbath, and I'm doing a theological live today. So most of y'all know that I am deconstructing from my Christian faith. I've been doing that for the past couple of years. I am a believer in Jesus Christ. However, I have separated myself from white, Western, European version of Christianity due to the history that I found out. There's a lot of racist and unethical things that happened. I'm still continuing to find out. I'm still studying. Excuse me for my voice. I'm just now getting my voice back. I didn't have my voice for about 3 or 4 days. And I'm just grateful to be talking again. So I hope everybody had a safe Halloween and a good week. And I'm going to start off with today's live. So, deconstructing from white Western Christianity. Very, very disturbing history. So there was a papal bull that was made by one of the popes in 1452, right? Which granted divine authority to Spain and Portugal to capture Africans and subject them to lifetime servitude by forced conversion to the religion of that time. There was also the expulsion of Jews and Muslims in Spain and Portugal, okay? Columbus is quoted by saying that the Taino people were without religion, so that basically gave him a green light to enslave them and torture them, okay? Also, there was something called the Valladolid trial in 1552. So it debated whether or not people of color were barbarians that could be civilized by Christian conversion, okay? Or if they were people whose souls were perpetually damned. So when you hear these type of things, right, that basically the foundations of white Western European Christianity come from foundations like this that are racist, that are, very questionable, unethical even, then it is not by accident or wonder why people are no longer messing with the church, that people are turning from conservatism and things of that nature, okay? So Christianity was called the white man's religion, okay? It was abused by white slaveholders to subjugate African people or people of color, black people. The white people used the religion to try to keep their slaves in line, but African people adopted Christianity for survival and liberation. So there is a major difference in how the two races operate toward Christianity, okay? Now, let's talk about the whitewashing of the biblical studies and the whitewashing of how the Bible is understood. Okay, so anachronistic whiteness and ethics interpretation in biblical studies, right? There's something called a politics of reading, okay, which is where there's an acceptable canon of scholarly sources within a field, an authority of reading of certain text and not others, okay? So it's basically a practice of authorization that surrounds and enables only certain ways of reading text, okay? So if in Bible colleges, this leads to a few programs where students of all backgrounds are required competency in scholars' methods and interpretive approaches associated with underrepresented groups or minority groups or non-white people, right? What do you think that's going to cause when it comes to the type of content and the type of information that people are being taught? Okay? The locations of universities and publishing houses that have a white majority are viewed as authoritative, right? And as long as you have credentials in these schools, it gives you professional standing regardless of race, okay? So that's basically white supremacy institutionalized, okay? Citational practices erase voices that are non-white. Okay? You don't hear too many white, Middle Eastern, or I'm sorry, not white, Black, African, Middle Eastern, Asian, or Native American voices being put at the forefront. Okay? Non-Western philosophy is rarely taught in academic seminaries. Okay? Anything that is non-white is seen as deviant. Okay? Now, 85% of the members of biblical literature are of European descent, and 76% of those white European descent people are white males. Okay? So basically, whiteness functions as normal, and everything ends up being measured by it. Okay? So all of that is going to affect the way that we are taught here, when it comes to Christianity. Now, back in history, white missionaries played a part in spreading the idea that Christianity is superior to other religions. Okay? It's basically religious imperialism or Christian supremacy, right? It's Christian suppressionist theology. Okay? So from the years of 1820 to 1950, there were basically full-blown racist ideas that were used to legitimize European domination of other races of people. Okay? And certain ethnic nations were considered superior to others, right? Because they were, quote unquote, more rational and civilized to justify, imperialism. Okay? The idea of social Darwinism, how God created a hierarchy, the strong and the weak. White people were usually put on top, and Black and non-Europeans were usually put at the bottom of this hierarchy. Okay? And then there's the racialized logic of essential essences, where individuals believe that a race is a fixed biological property or essence which determines a person's characteristics and abilities. So imagine if you believe that your race is superior and every other race below you is inferior. And that is another operation of white supremacy. Okay? There actually had to be a Social of Biblical Literature Committee for unrepresented ethnic and racial minorities and the status of women in the professional committee. There actually had to be a committee, to try to make sure that underrepresented voices get heard in these institutions. So that shows me that we have a long way to go. Okay? European thinkers like Socrates, Plato, Aristotle, all these Greek people are celebrated, but people like King Tut, Queen Nefertiti, Cleopatra, Pharaoh, they're often whitewashed, right? And they are very, very notable African leaders, right? The language requirement in these seminaries is that you're supposed to take biblical Hebrew, not Aramaic, right? And the Septuagint is accepted and not the Talmud, okay? Syriac is very, very popular, but not Ge'ez, which comes from Ethiopia, okay? So these are things that we should be thinking about. What are the influences? And why aren't voices of color and non-white voices heard? Okay? So that's all I have to say for now. Stay tuned for part 2. Peace.